Well, we're back again because the Commanders have finished the NFL draft. We went through free agency, we finished the draft, and now me and Tony and some others are back to chop it up to see how the Commanders graded out in the draft as we move forward to rookie mini camp and OTA. So, Tony, we're back again in the minute.
Well, you know what, Donna, what makes you think you're here to make the discussion? We just want you to open the show because we know you don't know a lot what's happening.
Let me tell you, Tony, for 3 days, I was out there sweating it out with the Commanders, learning all the ins and outs so that I could educate you today, Tony. But Tony, it's some other breaking news.
I know what that D I got. Okay, well, you know.
Yeah, but it's some other breaking news before we get into the Commanders. One of our greats, we learned, on Monday that Monty Coleman, a person that you and both us know well, I believe you played with him also. Talk a little bit about Monty Coleman and the fact that the great player that he was, and even more so the person that he was, a phenomenal person, even more so than the player.
And let's just not forget that he also was one of the co-hosts on this show when we first begun. And Monty was my locker mate. What you say, his locker was next to mine. He used to always throw trash in my locker and talk about it, and I would talk about him. I called Monty a few weeks ago, but a lot of people are looking at this and saying, here's Monty Coleman, 4 Super Bowl, 3 wins, and that's right. Here's Monty Coleman, super linebacker. We call him super for one reason. He could play every position.
Superman.
He could play. This guy even went back and caught punts. Now, this is a linebacker, 250 pounds, catching punts. He could play tight end. He was a great passer. He could cover running back. That's why we call him super, and that's why we were in the Super Bowl as many times as we were when he was with us. But more importantly, he was a good man. And, I've been trying to talk to him over the years because, we have a tendency to lose contact. And one thing about Monty, you always felt like you were talking to a friend or a relative. And I know the last time I saw him. So all you fans, you can talk about how great of a football player he was in the Super Bowls and all that. But just talk about how good a man he was and what he's left here for us to believe in. And we all do. And we want you to do the same. I don't want to be sad on this. So I'm gonna jump right into this draft. And,
hey, Tony, before you jump right into it, because I need some help with you today. So we brought in Josh Morgan to basically help us out. And then we brought in Corey back with us to help us out, Tony,
Donna,
in this draft.
Hey, Josh and Corey, she don't tell me nothing.
I hear you.
It's a secret because I knew that Tony today was going to need some help as we dissect the NFL draft for the Commanders and for the NFC East teams as we close out 2026 draft.
No, we have a little thing. Corey can't hear us right now, but I'm going to hit Josh and everything. Donna brought us all in because she has no knowledge of what happened. But, what do you think of the overall draft that the Commanders had?
Yeah, Corey was back in here. But, Tony, before we jump into getting everybody's analysis, let's find out who the Commanders drafted. They had 6 picks, Tony, and that wasn't a lot of picks, and they had to be savvy in their draft class of 2026. I thought last year was a great draft class because a lot of those guys played offensive line, played as far as wide receiver, as far as running back with Bill. So this year they knocked it out of the ballpark, I believe, with the first pick. Sonny Styles was a guy that the Commanders did not think was going to be on the board. And Kansas City, thank you, Kansas City, because I don't know what you were thinking, because to allow him to get away, the Commanders, it slipped right into their lap. This is a guy that can immediately come in. I mean, he was probably the top defensive linebacker on the boards. And he's going to be able to bring the speed, the physicality that the Commanders are looking for in the linebacker, being that Bobby Wagner, not for sure if he's coming back, but this is a guy, if you're going to have replace Bobby in that next tier, it will be Sonny Styles. And then they go wide receiver wise. We know that the Commanders still need to look at that number 2 receiver slot that they still have to address. Don't know if Deebo Samuels is coming back. Everybody is talking about Ayuk possibly being in a Commander's uniform, but still I thought that them picking a wide receiver was key, and Antonio Williams from Penn State is key. And then they went on the defensive side, because you can never have enough defensive players as they try to basically bring in pass rushers, and that's what they did with Josh Joseph from Tennessee. And then they went back as far as running back. Couldn't understand this pick at all, because they did in free agency bring a lot of running backs to the house. But again, competition is the key. And when you look at this guy, Allen from Penn State, he did a whole bunch of great things as far as physical, fast, and all of those things. So it's going to be some competition at that position. And then they went out and got them a center in Matt Gubin. And they needed a backup center because Allegati is the only guy that they have in there. So this guy can play both left and right guard and center. So this was key. And then they finish up the draft, Tony, getting a quarterback from Rutgers to compete with for that third quarterback with Sam Hartman. So this is the draft class for the Commanders. Not a lot of picks, but I thought that in addressing a lot of the needs and everything, to me, they did a good job in addressing that. So, Tony, platform is open to the panel and you to talk about just first Sonny Styles, the linebackers from Ohio State, and how did you see that pick?
Oh, I like that. I like the aspect that they did get the pass rushers, but I'm still kind of stuck on the aspect that I needed more offensive linemen in there. Yes, you did get a center, and that's good and everything, but you need better protection just like you need better rushing. I'm not putting down anything, even the quarterback in the end, but at the same time, I think they could have hit more situations than Corey, you and Josh can talk good too.
Hey, Tony, how could they hit more
situations? Now, you know when I say this, that it hurts me, but I would at least like to have seen one or two more offensive linemen, because now the game is going back to run that ball. And teams that can run the ball, everybody can catch. But the teams, and Josh, you guys can tell me about this. I'm not saying that they did not have a good draft, but you take an amateur like Donna, and she talking about, oh, this guy need to. They're looking at that first guy to be a pass rusher.
Not a pass rusher, Tony. They're looking at him cover guy.
Oh, he can do both.
Yeah, but Tony, you are forgetting what they did in free agency with what they did as far as building that defense. And you're talking about they addressed the offensive line last year and some. But when you look at this draft, when you have limited numbers of picks and everything, Josh, come in and help me out.
I don't think it's so much limited number of picks. I agree with Tony again, which is bizarre. But
evidently, you and Tony.
Wait, Josh. Hey, wait a minute.
No, listen.
You gotta take everything. You gotta take everything Corey says with a grain of salt, because he's a Cowboys fan. Okay?
You
have to take everything with a grain of salt.
So
he's looking from a different view.
I'm saying this.
But I do think on defense, they did get a lot younger. They got faster. They got more athletic. Sonny Styles, great linebacker, one of the best athletes in the draft. It's hard to pass up on a guy like that. You got a tough receiver out of Clemson. Played through injuries. They looking to come in. He can help with the run game. He could possibly help with the return game. My Virginia Tech guy, Jalen Lane, has been doing great in the return game. They looking for him to continue to step up in the passing game as well as help in the run game and utilize that speed on reverses and wide receiver sweeps and things like that as well. But I think it was a great draft. The other running back, Katron Allen, it is kind of a questionable pick. Like, why do we need another running back? And maybe to Tony's point, we could have went lineman right there with that pick. But depending on what was on the board at the time, he may have been the best pick. You know, we don't want
I
to
agree.
get
Now,
just a
I
guy
agree with
just to
Josh
get a
there.
guy.
Because I mean, at that
Yeah,
pick,
you
I
don't
mean,
want to get
that pick
just
is
a guy.
180. Exactly, that pick is 187. He's the second team All-American. He broke the Penn State rushing in the Big Ten. He broke the Penn State rushing record. Second team All-American, 6.2 yards a carry. That's crazy stats to get him in the sixth, and he's the second team All-American.
Yeah, but Big Cat, hold your point. Hold your point. Do you think they're going to utilize him? What did we say last year? They never got a bell cow.
They never got a bell cow. That's what we said last show. They never got a bell cow. I think where the miss was the third pick. That's where the mix. That's where they should have went lineman, because they need somebody to protect Jaden Daniels first of all, and they went lineman too late. I agree with Tony. They needed to go lineman there. Now, Sonny Styles.
Evidently, you all don't know the Commanders' offensive line right now, because when you look across the offensive line for the Commanders, they have needs to address. Last year, again, they did get a center, so they addressed that. But the thing about it is, you all are saying, why did they get a running back at that position?
I agree with the running back position.
Let me let y'all, before y'all go into that, let me let you listen to Adam Peters and what he says about the running back as far as bringing him here, what he adds. But even more so, let me talk to Adam Peters. Let's go back to the number 2 pick. I'm going to bring up, before we address the running backs, I'm going to bring up the wide receiver group, because let's go. We talked about Sonny Styles as far as the number 2 pick, and now we're looking at the wide receiver room. So I want to kind of like go through each pick. So the second pick is a wide receiver. The wide receiver room still don't have, they still don't have that number 2 pick, but adding in, as far as Antonio Williams, he's going to add in a lot of things because he can play slot, the speed and everything. And so these are your wide receivers. When you look at it, Terry McLaurin, when you look at it, Burks, De'Ami Brown, they bring him back. Jalen Lane didn't get to play really in the passing game that much, but more so special teams. And then Van Jefferson, they brought in. Luke McCaffrey got hurt at the end of last season, and they're looking to have him back. And then Nick Nash, and then Brooks, and then Williams. But before we talk about the wide receivers, let me just let you listen in to what Adam Peters says about Williams.
High FPI, can multi-align, understands the game, understands zone, understands man, understands how to win. And he's super competitive. He's super tough. Played through broken ribs last year in 2024, really fought through a hamstring injury this year, which really limited his, his production, but played through the whole thing. So I'd describe him just a great athlete, really fast. And he's fast in a lot of different ways. He's fast on 40 time. The GPS is really, really high on him in game, and then the old scout's eye. You see him, he plays fast, and he plays at a high level. He's an NFL route runner. He can win versus press. He can beat man coverage, and so we really like the versatility of him as well. He can play inside. He played a lot of inside this year. He played outside last year, and that's really the thing that differentiated him from a lot of guys is winning outside and winning against really good players outside, especially in 2024. So NFL route runner, there's just a lot of really, really good things about him. And yeah, he can play ZNF and or Z in slot. And so he'll work at both of those. The things that he can show you can play outside. He's not huge, but he's not small. He's just a hair under 6 feet, and he's a really tough player, and he's got really good releases, and he plays really fast. So those things allow him to win on the outside versus bigger corners. So even though he's not a 6'4" guy, he can still win on the outside, and his speed and his releases and his route running and his details allow him to do that. And the same thing with inside is he can win with his.
Let's go to as far as Antonio Williams and what Adam Peters has said about him, because to me, I think he's going to be a guy that they insert in that offense because understands zone and man as far as his speed, got the speed again. And as far as NFL route runner, and Josh, you well know that is key coming in What did you all think about this guy as far as at the number 2 pick, Tony? And I know you and Corey are on the offensive line, but it's that wide receiver room still needs to be addressed, and the Commanders did that at number 2 pick. So I'm going to let y'all talk about the number 2 pick.
You know, Jonathan, I know how you go.
Yeah, they definitely addressed that.
Yeah. You think? And let me ask you this. And before you get ready to do your dissertation, don't you feel that the reason they got that receiver as well is because they didn't know Scary Terry could go the whole year, and they saw last year without him, the offense went down to maybe 60%. Don't you think we're looking at who's going to back him up, but do you think they could be looking at who would replace him if he get hurt? John?
Yeah. Honestly, I think that's their job. That's what AP's job is. Yeah, that's their job. You know, it's their job to find the best talent available and then find somebody to replace you the following year. You know, that's just the way the business is from college to the NFL. So I definitely think that's what it is. They always looking for somebody like who can be next up, who can possibly replace Terry, who can possibly, you know, be the next guy. That's their job. Like I tell rookies that all the time. I tell college guys that all the time. It's their job to recruit you and make you feel like you're the greatest in the world. But as soon as you commit to their school, as soon as you get drafted, it's their job to find somebody to replace you to keep the competition level going. And that's what it is. Iron sharpens iron. So with this receiver room right here, I do think that, you know, Antonio Williams out of Clemson, I do think, you know, he is versatile. He is a tough guy to play through injuries. He remind me a lot of myself coming out of Virginia Tech. I had to play through a lot of injuries. Even when I came to the Commanders, I had to play through a lot of injuries. And you can kind of put me in a slot. You can put me outside and all those things. But like Donna said, the key to what AP said, honestly, was, you know, an NFL route runner. You need guys that can get open, that can understand man. Man to man is the hardest coverage to get open verse. And if he can get open verse man with that speed and that route running ability, we're not really worried about a dominant offensive lineman that can, you know, it's not too many Trent Williams out there. I mean, let's be honest. You know, So yeah, we want a lineman, but if you got a great route runner that can get open within the timing of the play to keep Jaden upright, then he's not on his back. We're not worried about him because he's getting the ball.
He's going to be on his back.
He's going to be on his back.
He's going to be on his back. That's what we're trying to tell you, man.
They're looking for speed. It's a lot of speed in that receiver room.
It's a lot of speed. I like that pick at 2. I do like that pick at 2. I just don't like the pick at 3. At 3, I think they should have went lineman at 3. They definitely. Now you went real late. You got a center, very, very extremely late. As you know, Jaden wasn't the only quarterback that got hurt last year either. Like
yeah,
they were down
he wasn't. And honestly, let's be honest. Look at how he got hurt. That was the second time.
Unorthodox. It wasn't because of the offensive line that he got hurt.
His second injury. The second injury wasn't his. I mean, the second injury was his fault. I mean, it was him trying to brace himself.
Let's remember, we're talking about football. Football is a violent game.
It is a violent game,
especially on this turf. And these athletes. Look at Sonny. These athletes not doing anything but getting bigger, faster, stronger. Pause. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's nothing like look at the 5th round pick we did at the end. You know, was he the best on the board at the time? And I'm just thinking like AP, like a GM, Dan Quinn in the room. That's their job to try to pick the best on the board at the time. It's a chess match. You understand? So they're picking the best available at the time.
Makes sense.
If it wasn't an old lineman better than him,
that goes back to the point about. I agree there because the best on the board at the time. I agree there because where they got Allen at was crazy to me to get that second, and because and then the first 3. What it was the first? How many running backs went in the first 3 rounds? Like almost none. So everybody got pushed to the bottom. And Donna, you thanked KC. You should have thanked the Giants for getting Reese instead of getting Styles.
Well, even them. I think whoever was ahead of the Commanders for allowing them to have Styles drop in their lap. But let's go back to that wide receiver room because it's not so much about Terry getting hurt or anything like that. It's about building this wide receiver room with that number 2 guy that takes pressure off of Terry that You look at the Cowboys, you look at Philadelphia Eagles, you look at guys that have 1 and 2 great receivers that it is hard to defend them. So Washington is trying to put themselves in position with that next receiver beyond Terry. And so when you look at this wide receiver room, getting Antonio Williams, and not only this is a little more information about him. Tough play, has good release, and Josh will understand this, and you all will understand this. Great release, meaning that he can get off the line. How many wide receivers can you look at that cannot get off the line? And if you can get off the line, then that's going to make you dangerous. And then even against big receivers, he wins against those big receivers. So it's not so much of him being tall or anything like that. Can you win in that position? So when you look at that room, still, to me, I asked them after the draft, that I said, when you look at the draft and look at free agency, how do you see this Commanders team? And they're saying that they will assess the roster moving forward to see what else they can plug in. Still learning to me, along with all the wide receivers right here, is will Deebo Samuels come back, or Ayuk if they get him? What's y'all's take on Deebo Samuels coming back possibly, or Ayuk? Was those 2 guys that you would want in a Commander's uniform still to add to this wide receiver room? Or are you comfortable with the guys right now that's in the room?
Okay, Donna. I'm gonna have to, amicus curiae. That's me. You're a friend of the court. You're not really going either way. You're just bringing information. So I'm going to bring you some information right now.
It's not information, Tony. It's solid facts.
This is an educational beat down I'm getting ready to do. Now,
you got to break. Look, if you don't bring this down, they're going to come back at you.
Off the line of scrimmage, they're going to get people going to get down the field.
But Tony, how many wide receivers do you see can get off the line of scrimmage? The Commanders had a few here.
Yeah, a lot of, especially the younger receivers. A lot of younger receivers struggle getting off the jam.
Thank you. Well, can I say something?
That's what I was just saying.
Okay, don't be scared now. I ain't gonna hurt you bad. But you talk about receivers getting. You saying our quarterback, he can make it happen for both of those entities as well as the running back to be successful. The game is won at the line of scrimmage.
At the line of scrimmage.
The game is won. I joke about a lot of things, Donna, but I tell you what, I know that the game, we can have the smartest quarterback in the world. And if we had a quarterback in Chicago that ran for 1,000 and threw for 200 yards in a whole year, but we won some games because you got to have that line. You got to have the people to give them time to do these things. We know you can do it. If you could just do it without nobody there, fine. But can you do it with somebody in your face? And I tell you what, I know I'm always on the defensive side. All that great things you said about the offense is great. But a receiver getting off the line of scrimmage, a quarterback throwing the ball, and the running back hitting the hole, none of that would happen without offensive line.
Donna, there is no posse without the Hogs.
Thank you.
This is my point.
So that's where we got it. That's where we got it. We got to change with the
fail to realize that
I agree.
They don't have to have a good offensive line. They have people that they plugged in on the offensive line. We're talking about the next areas of this team that has to be good too to go along with the offensive line.
Well, everybody you go out and get in trades and stuff don't work out. They plugged it in, but did they plug it in just on paper or did they plug it in on the field?
Yeah, Donna, are these guys going to pour milk on cereal?
I mean, honestly, Tony, everybody has to come in and learn a new system.
That's the other thing. That part right there. That's the other part right there.
Free agency. Everybody has to come in and learn to the system. They have to buy in. But we keep talking about an O-line. How many Hall of Fame linemen did Tom Brady have? How many Hall of Fame linemen did Patrick Mahomes have? You can look at every Super Bowl team. How many great linemen do they have? As long as they work cohesively as a unit and do their job, that's all we need. That's why we try to surround them with so much talent, because you're not going to get a line of hogs. You're not going to replace that line. It's so hard. That's what made them so great. That's why we still talking about him years later because that was one of the greatest offensive linemen assembled. That was a great O-lineman group.
None in the hole.
It's hard to get that. You can't look anywhere
the
throughout the NFL and see
but that ain't gonna always happen
on one team.
That ain't gonna always happen. That ain't
But
gonna,
Big
that
Cat,
ain't gonna
you know
always
what?
happen with
So
the O-line.
yeah, we could.
Look
That's
at
not
the
gonna always happen
people.
with the O-line. But we talked about Ayuk versus Debo. I'm off on the Ayuk. I'm a Cowboy fan. Go get Ayuk. Please don't bring Debo back. That's
We
what
might
I
have
want.
to. We might have to. put you-
Hey, Donna, wait.
Debo is a problem.
Hey, we might have
Ho.
We might have to
Everybody
put
hold
Corey
right
in the
Donna,
back
hold on.
room.
I got to hit this, Donna. Come on.
Don't. As Josh said earlier, take Corey's comments with a grain of salt.
I
Did
don't
you
want to
just
see
sit
Debo.
on this show and say you a
I don't
Dallas
want to see
fan?
Debo.
Man,
I don't want to see Debo.
Donna, you
Yeah,
better
he
calm
did.
down right now. Did you say that?
Hey, Tony, you were
Did you say
siding
that?
with him.
Mute his-
Tony was siding with him.
No, I wasn't. When he said I'm a Dallas fan, it was
I don't
all
want to
right
see
with
Debo.
it.
Be idiotic and not pick up Debo again. And
Well,
go get
no,
Ayuk.
it's not about not picking up Debo. It's Debo if he wants to come back here and he's testing out the market. So I'm hoping that Debo comes back here too. But the wide receiver,
Debo don't come back.
The wide receiver, of course, you don't want him to come back.
I don't want to see Debo.
So let's move on to the.
I would love for
think
AP. I would love. I would love for
Debo-
AP and them to figure out a way to get Debo and Ayuk here because I
think
feel like it's a
Debo-
way you could do it. I feel like with the way the salary cap is, especially with
Right.
Ayuk's situation with him wanting to play with his college teammate Jaden and all of those things, I feel like it's a way we could get both of them in the room, and that would just make the room even more dangerous.
That's a great point, Josh. And
You
know
talk
what?
about one receiver that's going to pour milk on cereal and the other one that's going to make it snap, crackle, pop.
Well, they're not
That's the
looking at
difference.
him as to do that, Big Cat. They looking at him as to be a person that can make the number one receiver. Because right now he wasn't a number one receiver, but you know, in this year, every time you look at it, he may make two good plays, then two bad plays, but he made the plays. So if they get him back, fine. I still say you got to build up from the ground, and the ground starts on both sides of that line. What defensive lineman do they have that you think people are looking at him in the huddle and saying, "Ooh,
I'm scared of him."
With Monty Coleman and Terry Brooks."
They didn't even get to use Debo Samuels the way they wanted to use him because Terry came to camp late and everything. Injuries happen. So as with a new offensive coordinator, if you get a Debo Samuels back, I think that you're going to be able to utilize him the way you really wanted to in David Blough's offensive scheme this year. So I would say that let Debo come back and be used the way he should be used, and you will see that explosive guy that you've been waiting to because you can utilize him in so many different areas. But Tony, as we turn the page to the third pick for the Commanders, as far as Joshua Joseph, defensive end from Tennessee. This is a guy that probably won't play right off, but the Commanders are building for the future. This guy is ball savvy, Tony, really understands the game concept, watches a lot of film, he says. And not only that, long wingspan, meaning that he can get after the quarterback, get to the quarterback. With this pick, as the Commanders look at free agency where they addressed a lot of needs on defense up front, this just adds to the depth of the defense. How do you, being a defensive-minded person, Tony, since you just was terrible on the offensive side of the ball in your analysis, messing with you. But anyway, this is your side of the ball, Tony, as they address another need as far as depth on the defensive line, getting Joshua Joseph from Tennessee. So I'm giving you the platform first.
But don't take this wrong, but they got to get some better coaching too. When you get guys up in the middle of that line, defense,
they got a new defensive coordinator.
Yeah, but they got to get that into the units, and not just that one. Have any of you haven't mentioned defensive backs? Do you know that? I mean, everything plays as a unit, and that's what all of you guys, I know you realize. Every unit helps every other unit. Like I played with two Pro Bowl Both wide receivers in Mike Haynes and Darrell Green. And I know I made them better, but they made me better. I wouldn't have never got that. And that's the concept I'm trying to get over here, gang, that we got to get people in here that all can work together and do their job to make somebody else better. See, Debo, yeah, you can get him in, but what are you going to run him back or that wide receiver? So you lose him as a person that's going to change the game up. You still need the bell cow. Receivers, yeah, Scary Terry is scary, but we scared that he's not going to always be there. So you get another one that is a wide receiver. What I do in the draft is I look at each and every position, and I try to get somebody in that position to make the one that's already there play harder. And that's what I saw with this team when we went to Super Bowl. It wasn't a matter about who played, it's who was going to get to play. And if somebody got hurt, somebody stepped in. So what I'm saying about this, yeah, these are some good people. That line, I like having him. But it's still, who are the big people inside to stop those 10-yard runs? They didn't have that this year.
Well, no, they may have not had it this year, Tony,
I think they addressed that in free agency.
I'm gonna let Josh
and they addressed it in free
finish
agency
up.
as well.
But don't, please,
No, I
never.
definitely think they addressed that in free agency.
If you don't see them right now, we can only deal with what we know they have. I'd have seen a lot of free agents come up and be bust. Well, I remember at the end of his career, Chuck Foreman, remember him, you young guy, probably. He ran like Gail said. By the time he got to us, man, we would look like he was running on crutches. So what I'm saying is, let's look at what we do have right here. Let's look at what we know we're going to have and try to improve around it. I know you're trying to improve situations, but one thing about it, you got to have somebody good at all these positions if you're talking Super Bowl. If somebody get hurt, somebody got to be to stand up. So that's why I'm talking. I'm not downing anybody. I'm not doing anything. But I'm saying as receivers, you got to have that main one. You saw that this year. As pass rushers, you got to have that main one. We didn't have this year. In the middle, you got to have that main one. We didn't have this year. Defensive back. Do you hear what I'm saying here? We didn't have that. We didn't have a bell cow. So what I'm saying is, I'm not surprised at the way the season went, but I know it can be better. And
Tony, but they realized that being winning 5 games, but they did come in, Tony, and address the areas that they were having the most problems, because I brought up the free agency.
Yes, they did.
That for the Commanders. We're talking about they couldn't get to the quarterback. They didn't have depth on the defensive line. And you're saying that, and I agree, it starts up front, defensive line, offensive line. So we're talking about a defense that had not performed well. So they went in free agency, Tony, and addressed the defensive front. Look at the defensive front that they addressed. And then also the secondary, you were just talking about the secondary. They addressed that. Leo
on paper.
I understand, Tony, but everything starts on paper. So
we talked about Leo. We talked about Leo last show. We talked about Leo. KC, and I saw his press conference. And it goes back to what me and Tony said. On paper, he came from a winning culture. But did KC win? Was that defense stopped because of him? It's more stopped because of the D-backs.
But it can't be stopped because of one person.
No. It can't.
Yeah, because like Tony just said, it takes every position group. It takes every position group to help the other.
And my thing is that everything,
and I trust that AP did. If you look at every position, like he made every position room competitive. It's competition everywhere.
That is true.
That's the running back competition.
There you
Look
go.
at what we did at tight end. Look at what we did at D-line. Look at what it's competition everywhere. So it's
except for
right now. And we hoping and praying all these guys buy into the offense. We hoping these coaches click with these guys and make them play for them. But I think we address everything, like Donna said. We address everything that we kind of lacked that last year. AP did a great job. They did a great job going to get these guys. We got younger. We got faster. We got stronger. We have new coaches. We address everything, that whole D-line. And if you look at those great defenses that you played on, Tony, right? You had those young, you had those strong, you had those fast D-linemen that did what? kept them O linemen off your linebackers so your linebackers could play free and make plays.
Hey, we had
You
Big
got
Dave
speed
looking out
everywhere.
for him.
Just imagine how fast and how strong these D linemen and these linebacker groups going to be. You know, and look at what we did. We got Nick Cross at the safety. We got Amik Roberts at corner. Every position group got more competitive, and we getting faster and younger on offensive side as well. Look at what we did at tight end. I love Zach Ertz. I pray to God he heals and everything. But come on now, look at what this guy did last year. Look at what this guy did in the league.
Yeah.
And I'm just talking about everywhere.
There you go.
The
And
Army,
you know,
Van Jefferson. Look at what
this
they
is the kind of talk
did. And you
they
talking about
need
guys
in
that
their
been on
locker
one
room,
team.
Donna. This is the kind of talk that they need. And you know what? If it were me, and you can say it's harsh, as I said, I'd have drafted somebody in every position, and in when they came into training camp, I'd have two things in their locker: an apple and a road map. When they didn't play well, they used it that night. Ain't no time to play. And I'm just being serious. You're looking at all these young teams. When Seattle can win the Super Bowl, man, come on. That's an embarrassment.
But why is it embarrassing, Tony? Because Seattle,
I mean,
getting their quarterback, they got their quarterback
They
that
weren't
they've
that
been
good,
missing.
though. And the
That
team
was the key. They had the running game, everything clicked. Their defense was solid. So we've been talking about for the last couple of years, can the Commanders address the defense? Well, they did that through free agency, and any team across the league with whatever picks that they pick, you have to see if things work. I know that y'all talking about that.
Oh, really? That wasn't your
It
tune
looks
last
good on
show,
paper,
Donna.
but every team
That
has
was not
something
your, hold
on
up, wait a
paper.
minute, Donna. That was not your that was me and Tony's tune last show.
No,
Yeah,
I'm
and we
just
keep
saying
talking
that
about what
you
happened
and Tony-
last year.
I'm
Like,
just
we were
saying
one of
that
the
you
most-
and
I said
Tony
last
talking
show.
about
Last
it
show.
looked good on it's on paper and whatever. Well, every team looks good on paper and
No, we
whatever,
didn't
but
say it. No, we
we're
said
talking
it
about
only looks good on paper.
what did the Commanders do to get better? They went and addressed every area on defense. The defensive front,
Everything.
they did
Yeah,
that.
they got better.
They addressed the back of the
Yes.
defense. They addressed the linebacker position. They addressed
Yes.
the running back position, wide receiver. So I'm not understanding where you and Corey, the Cowboy fan, even more so is coming from. So we're going to take it with a grain of salt with what he said.
No, they
But
definitely
I'm
got
not
better.
understanding of how because everybody has to go into camp and everything to see how these guys, but this is what the Commanders did. They created competition at every position. They created depth at every position, and it's just some areas still that they still will tweak. But to me, they did the necessary things that they needed to do to get better this year. Now, it all was predicated on, the play and everything, but they did their homework. Adam Peters and company did their homework to get this team better. They got a new offensive coordinator. They got a new defensive coordinator. So I'm looking to say, let's see how this all shakes out, moving forward. And we haven't talked about Allen. And I know y'all said we need a bell cow
I like Allen.
as running back. But again, the thing about it is the pieces, if Jayden is going to be behind the center a lot more this year. So that means that running game, I think the Commanders have the people in-house in the running game because you don't always need the bell cow to bring bing if all the other pieces are falling into place.
You need running back by committee. You definitely, I agree. You need running back by committee.
Yeah.
Out of all the pick, of course, Sonny Styles is the sexy pick. I like the pick of Allen. You got him at 187. And like I said, he's the second team All-American. 6.2 yards in the Big Ten with Penn State, and he broke the Big Ten rushing record. So I think that's the sexiest pick they got, outside of Styles, of course. I think that's a great pick.
I give him an A+ in free agency. I give him an A+ in the draft. They did a great job doing their homework. And we all could sit here and, just for argumentative purpose, say it's on paper and everything has to work out, right? Look at every Super Bowl team. You got to get healthy at the right time. You got to have the right coach. You got to have guys buying in the system, and you got to get high at the right time. You got to win those playoff games. We were one of the most injured teams in the league last year. So, of course, we're going to only have 5 wins. It's hard to plan for all of those injuries to happen. Football is a game, a violent sport, but to have as many injuries with all of our top guys that we had last year, I think they did a great job making
not the top.
everyone competitive.
That
like
I do
Donna
agree.
said.
Not just the top guys, the second string. Y'all finished with a fourth string quarterback last year, so yeah, definitely that.
Yeah.
But why moving forward, how you think we could talk about the running backs right now. It's going to be a dogfight for that starting position. I think.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a dogfight.
I don't care who starts the
right
game.
now.
I never care who starts the game. It's about
Who finished.
We always get so fixated on starters, right? Man, when
Nah,
you really
I'm
watching
talking
the
about,
game, in any sport, watch
you
who's
need to-
finishing the
especially
game.
now,
See who's in the game in
especially
clutch
now.
time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
See who's
Especially
in the
now.
game in clutch time. Those are your
That's the
guys.
difference.
Because those
That
will
I
be your
agree.
guys you depend
The
on
difference.
during those
Well, you know
playoff
what?
runs, during those Super Bowl runs.
Yep, I agree. It's a
I can
difference
only
now.
do it from my time, and what we always did and what we had to do was we knew that our jobs weren't secure. When they sign you to a contract, they got your off-season job too. That should tell you something.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is they need to put a little fear in these players. They don't need them walking around as
That's
millions and doing nothing. You know what? Don't tell me you got a million.
No, that's what I think they did.
It's a tackle that don't get a defensive lineman that don't get over 10 sacks. We had 3 people on our team, and we had 4 when Monty had about 8.5. Dave Butts had 10.5. Dave Butts had 11. Dexter had 10.5, and I had 10. Now, and none of us made money. What I'm saying, you put that fear in there. You put that fear. If you don't do your job, there's going to be somebody here to do it tomorrow. And that's what I think we did well back in the 80s.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying we can live in that time, but what I'm saying is we need a little of that analogy. We don't need these players walking around making millions and all they worried about is what club they're going to be in next. I did both. I clubbed and I played. You got to be able to play. That's the bottom line. And Donna, you're not saying they didn't address it, but why do you think those other teams got rid of the people we brought in? They weren't doing it there. So that's why I'm saying we can't say it's been addressed until we see it addressed. When we see it in the game next year.
What GC say? Game 4, around the 4th game.
To your point.
And you got a new OC.
To your point, Tony. I don't think it was a case where those guys weren't doing it at those other teams. I think you got a lot of guys that want to saw what Jaden did as a rookie and want to be a part of that. See what Dan Quinn is doing with the Commanders. See what Adam Peters is doing with the Commanders, and they want to be a part of that. They see the ownership group. They see. I think that's what that is. I think those guys did great at their prospective teams they were on, but I just think they see what the Commanders are building, and a lot of people want to be a part of that. A lot of people, you got a lot of receivers that want to play with Jaden Daniels.
That's true.
You heard
Sure do, because they're calling up saying
he wanted to be a Commander.
Yeah, they definitely calling up, but
they saw what it is, and everybody that really knows the game. Everybody that knows the game, they understand like injuries happened last year, and that's just part of football. So everybody's excited about, okay, let's see what a healthy Commander squad can do, especially with all these upgrades. Just imagine if they stay healthy throughout the whole year. I think the upside is tremendous.
And the biggest thing you said there was Commander team. And so, Donna, I know we kind of jumped on different things. Let's hit the last of these draft choices because we want to make sure we talk about everything. But we have to have another. We'll do this again so we can have I like the way we hit this around. But one thing about it is we hitting some key spots is very interesting. And I got my analogy at it. Only thing I can tell you guys is I played in over 200 games. Josh can tell you how many games he played and whatever. And what we do is take what we see there and what happens there, and we relate it to our whole game. And that's one thing I know that Coach Gibbs, if we didn't get 100 yards rushing in the game, we had on pads on Tuesday. The offense and the defense line. We didn't get we had almost like a game. So, I mean, what you got to realize is it's not just the player. It's not just the team. It's not just the coaches. It's the whole organization. And that's where you got to get that. And that's what we had back in the 80s. We had the organization. That's what I'm saying. They got pieces here. But it's just like a house. you make that house pretty upside and the foundation ain't jack, it ain't gonna stand. Okay.
Hey, Tony, but it does take.
Yeah, I mean, to your point again, Tony. To your point again, I just think. I think that's what that ownership is trying to emulate, Tony. I think that's where you got guys like Josh that's born and raised from this area that saw y'all win those Super Bowls, that saw that Joe Gibbs blueprint, and that's what most teams do. I think that's what they're trying to go back to, just emulating that blueprint, right? Because the game doesn't change. They played this game long before you was born, long before I was here, and they're gonna play. The blueprint is a blueprint, and I think with Josh, Magic, Mark, all those the whole ownership group, AP, the whole coaching staff, they're trying to emulate that blueprint where it is what it is, that mentality, that championship mindset, that championship blueprint, to where now you go and just watch what OTAs are going to look like, watch what training camp is going to look like, watch what practice is going to look like.
Yeah, and one other agree 100% what you're saying as far as what they're building from the foundation up as they move forward with a new offensive coordinator, with a new defensive coordinator. I'm ecstatic to see how that all plays out. So the last two picks, the Commanders at the center position, is a key one. During the draft, I was saying, oh man, the Commanders got to get a backup center with Nick Allegatti as your starter right now. And they went in and got Matt Gugman, a guy from Michigan State. He was with Wake Forest for a couple of years. This is a guy that can play. And this is what the Commanders, when I look at what they're doing with the draft, is they're getting guys, even last year with what they did, got guys that can play multiple positions. It's just not the center position, but he can play left and right guard, meaning that if injury comes, they can move him around the line. Not for sure how quickly this guy will move around, but when you look at him, his credentials and everything, he said he feels like he can succeed in all three positions because he was forced into competing or playing in those positions because of injuries. So that's what you like about him, knowledgeable about the game, as far as versatile. That's, to me, is a great pick. As far as I know, Corey said they waited down the line, but this may have been the best guy because he did drop some because of other, you don't know what's going on in the draft, but for the Commanders to get a center that can play multiple positions, that's a win-win. And we understand the quarterback position, that third position, as far as them picking him up, as far as competing with Sam Hartman, to me, who did not step up in his play. So they brought in another quarterback as far as the third quarterback. So we're pretty much out of time almost, but I kind of want to leave the floor, Tony, to all of you all to talk about just these last two picks. And then as the Commanders, we'll circle back around when the Commanders have their rookie mini camp in early May to kind of like, I'll have a chance to talk to them a little bit more, see a little bit more. But the final two picks for the Commanders as we close this out.
Well, Josh, before we get started, you and Corey, y'all have done a great job and you've done your homework. And I think that's what's important. And for you fans, when you look at, you listen to broadcasts like this, you listen to the people that's in there. I listen to these two guys and I can tell they know what they're doing. I mess with Donna, but Donna knows what she's doing. And right now, this team is at the point where they can be really good or really bad. And that's why we don't want you fans to feel like we just beating them down or anything. We just want to make sure that they give it all out on the field. Just like we give it as fans, it's time for them to give it as players. So you guys can finish with your conversation. But one thing we'll be back to have this conversation again because we're not through here. Yeah, Donna made a lot of mistakes, but I got her some extra teaching, so we're going to see can we catch her up before. But no, Donna, you guys did a great job. I'm going to sit back and listen to you guys. I enjoy when I get a chance. There's been so much going on doing this, but I do stop with my last part of the statement, which I will say goodbye. But once again, I just want to say all you fans out there, Monty Coleman, super player, Superman, this is super person.
Mm-hmm. And Josh and Corey, y'all's grades for the Commanders in this draft?
B+.
A plus in free agency, A plus in the draft, man. I think from what was on the board and what was available, I watched the whole draft. We got a friend, Dustin Pinkett, that studies the draft and been studying since he was like 4 years old. And he just sit there every pick. So the best available, I think they did a great job getting what was available at those picks that we had. I think again with the free agency and all the moves they made in free agency, I think they A plus all around the board. So, and I'm not saying that because I'm a fan. I'm just saying that with my football mind, seeing what was available and seeing the moves they made, they did a great job. A plus. You know, you want a center. You got a great center like that in the 6th round and pick 209, like, and that can play more. You know, it's versatility everywhere. They got younger, they got smarter, they got faster, they got stronger. It's hard to compete with that. And they made every position, you know, competition everywhere, even within the coaches. It's competition
that's what
everywhere,
you gotta do.
and that's what you
Gotta do.
want to step into a competitive environment where
They had some players out there last year
that
that couldn't even play dead.
Yeah, and to get a quarterback with the last
and like
pick.
you said, you still got that Debo IU question out there. Whereas though we can get more dangerous. You know, you never.
And the
know what's
owner
gonna
did
happen.
say
So
this
we'll
week,
see.
the GM did say this past weekend over the draft that they are not letting him go. Now that's what they said early, but we have to just wait and see how that plays out.
It
But
better not.
look, guys, we ran out of time. We got to come back. So hold your comments till the next time that we come back. But Tony, as they say, we don't say goodbye.
We talk a lot of stuff, but we never say goodbye. We say in the minute.
In the minute.
Rest in peace, Monty Coleman.
There you
In
go.
a minute. Rest in peace, Monty Coleman, for sure.
Peace,
One of the
Monty.
greats. Great human being, great football player, a
Great
legend.
person.
A legend.
There you
May his
go.
spirit live on forever.
Long live 5-1.